Time travel on screen has never been a safe ride. It's messy, it's unpredictable, and in the hands of 1960s and 70s filmmakers, it could blow your mind wide open. These weren't slick digital spectacles. They were raw, daring experiments where directors pushed science fiction into strange new corners. What if you jumped forward into humanity's downfall, or stumbled backward into history you thought you knew? Some of these films became classics, others cult relics, but all of them bent time in ways Hollywood never saw coming. The Time Travelers, 1964. Imagine building a machine that lets you peek into the future, only to realize you've stepped through the screen itself. That's the twisted premise of The Time Travelers, a 1964 sci-fi curiosity that begins like a harmless lab experiment and ends like a nightmare loop. A group of scientists accidentally open a portal to the year 2071. At first, it's dazzling, shimmering portals, sleek costumes, and visions of tomorrow. But soon the future reveals itself as bleak and terrifying. The Earth has been ravaged by radiation. Mutated survivors roam the wastelands, and the scientists are trapped. What makes this movie unforgettable isn't just the dystopian vision, but the chilling kicker. The characters discover they can't get back. Their only hope is moving further into time itself, a gamble that leads to one of the strangest, most unsettling endings of 1960s sci-fi. Director Ib Melchior shot the film on a shoestring budget, but he poured ambition into every frame. Practical effects like glowing portals and futuristic labs felt fresh, even when rough around the edges. Today, the movie stands as an early warning about tampering with time. It doesn't give you heroic victories or tidy resolutions. It slams the door in your face. No wonder it became a late-night cult classic, inspiring shows like Mystery Science Theater 3000 to riff on its eerie loops. It dared to suggest that the future isn't waiting for us with open arms. It might be a trap. The Time Machine 1960. If there's a godfather of cinematic time travel, this is it. The Time Machine, directed by George Pal, didn't just adapt H.G. Wells' novel. It reinvented how audiences imagined time itself. Released in 1960, it took viewers on a breathtaking ride from Victorian England into the far future. The machine itself, with its gleaming brass, giant spinning disc, and throne-like seat, became one of the most iconic props in sci-fi history. But what really blew audiences away was the journey. In a dazzling montage, the time traveler played by Rod Taylor watches seasons flicker by in seconds. Buildings rise and crumble, and entire civilizations vanish. By the time he lands in the year 800-2701, he discovers a disturbing future where humanity has split into two species, the childlike Eloi above ground and the terrifying Morlocks below. This wasn't a future of flying cars and shining cities. It was primal, brutal, and unforgettable. The film won an Academy Award for its special effects, but its real legacy lies in how it made time travel feel possible. George Pal treated Wells' novel with respect, but he also knew how to punch it up for a Cold War audience. The looming fear of nuclear destruction hung over every frame. Audiences didn't need much imagination to believe that humans might dig underground and devolve into monsters. More than 60 years later, the Time Machine still holds up because it makes us ask the big questions. Where are we really heading? And will progress save us or doom us? Few films have ever answered those questions with such a chilling smile. Beyond the Time Barrier, 1960. A test pilot blasting through the stratosphere, a sonic boom tearing open the future, and suddenly, it's not 1960 anymore. Beyond the Time Barrier isn't sleek or glamorous. It's scrappy, black and white, and fueled by pure pulp imagination. But what it lacks in polish, it makes up for in sheer audacity. The story follows U.S. Air Force Major Bill Allison, who flies an experimental jet and accidentally rockets into the year 2024. What he finds is less Jetsons and more nightmare. A plague has decimated humanity, leaving behind a mute, scarred underclass ruled by a decaying dictatorship. The once proud civilization is a sterile shell, obsessed with survival. Allison is both a prisoner and a rare genetic key to their salvation. Director Edgar G. Ulmer, known for making the most of limited budgets, created a world of stark corridors, eerie silence, and unsettling mutations. The film's vibe is unmistakably Cold War. Paranoia, fallout fears, and a future where science hasn't saved mankind, it's destroyed it. The claustrophobic sets only add to the tension. You don't feel like you're watching the future. You feel like you're trapped in it. Critics at the time wrote it off as cheap B-movie fare, but modern audiences see it differently. Beyond the Time Barrier was one of the first films to seriously wrestle with the idea that progress might not save us from ourselves. Instead of triumphant explorers, it gave us a warning. Time might carry us forward, but the future could be emptier than we dare admit. It's a bleak prophecy that still resonates today. Journey to the Center of Time, 1967. Take a team of scientists, a faulty time experiment, and one very bad day, and you get Journey to the Center of Time. Released in 1967, this movie didn't have the money of Hollywood blockbusters, but it had something else: guts. It dared to throw its characters into the blender of time itself. The setup is simple. A group of researchers working on a top-secret time experiment push their machine too far. Instead of landing in one neat destination, they're hurled through history like rag dolls, prehistoric jungles, medieval battles, futuristic dystopias. Each leap is wilder than the last, and the characters are left scrambling for survival with every jump. The charm of this film lies in its unpredictability. One moment you're staring down dinosaurs, the next you're trapped in a sterile future where humanity has become robotic. Director David L. Hewitt leaned heavily on stock footage and recycled sets, but he spun them into a narrative that never stops moving. The movie feels like a roller coaster, stitched together from a dozen other rides, and somehow, it works. What makes Journey to the Center of Time memorable isn't polish. It's the raw sense of possibility. It captured the wild, anything-goes spirit of 60s sci-fi, where even a tiny budget couldn't stop filmmakers from reaching for cosmic ideas. It's messy, chaotic, and often hilarious, but it also embodies the dream of time travel as a dangerous playground. You never know where you'll land next, or if you'll make it back. Cyborg, 2087, 1966. Before the Terminator ever whispered, "I'll be back," there was Cyborg, 2087. Released in 1966, this overlooked film sketched out a story that feels eerily familiar today. A cybernetic agent travels back in time to prevent a dystopian future ruled by mind control. Sound familiar? That's because James Cameron's 1984 classic owes more than a little to this unsung gem. The film stars Michael Rennie as Gartha 7, a cyborg sent from the year 2087 to stop a breakthrough in brainwave technology that will enslave humanity. His mission is to hunt down the scientists behind it and rewrite the future. Along the way, he battles government agents, dodges suspicion, and wrestles with his own identity. Unlike the sleek machines of later films, Garth isn't unstoppable. He's conflicted, weary, and painfully human. What makes Cyborg 2087 remarkable is how ahead of its time it was. The movie didn't have big-budget effects, but it nailed the core paradox of time travel. Can one man's intervention really rewrite the destiny of billions? Its grim vision of the future taps straight into Cold War anxieties about technology, control, and freedom slipping through our fingers. Though largely forgotten after its release, Cyborg 2087 gained cult respect in later decades, especially as fans noticed the striking parallels to The Terminator. It may not have had the Polish or star power, but it dared to ask the same terrifying question. What if the machines aren't coming tomorrow, they're already here? Idaho Transfer, 1973. What if time travel wasn't a shiny escape, but a haunting reminder of how fragile the world is? That's the eerie power of Idaho Transfer, a 1973 oddity directed by Peter Fonda. Yes, the same Fonda who symbolized counterculture with Easy Rider decided to tell a story about ecological doom, and he did it in the most unsettling way possible. The film follows a group of young people recruited into a secret government project that allows them to travel forward in time. The twist? Only the young can make the leap. Adults' bodies reject the process. Suddenly, teenagers, barefoot, uncertain, vulnerable, are humanity's only hope of survival. When they arrive in the near future, they find the Earth devastated by ecological collapse and society erased. It isn't a wild sci-fi spectacle, it's a quiet apocalypse. What makes this movie so unnerving is its stillness. Shot in the desolate Idaho landscape, the film leans on barren visuals, long silences, and eerie minimalism. There's no booming score, no flashy effects. Just the stark reality of kids walking through the ghost of a civilization that once was. Critics didn't know what to make of it, and audiences largely ignored it at the time. But decades later, it feels prophetic. Idaho Transfer doesn't sugarcoat the future. It suggests that time travel won't save us if we've already poisoned the Earth. Fonda's vision lingers long after the credits roll because it doesn't give you answers. It leaves you stranded, staring into the same abyss the characters face. For those who stumble upon it today, it feels less like a relic and more like a warning delivered straight out of the past. Time After Time, 1979. Now, here's a movie that flips the script in the most delightful way possible. Time After Time takes the father of science fiction himself, H.G. Wells, and throws him headfirst into a modern-day nightmare. The setup is genius. Wells actually builds his time machine, only to have it stolen by Jack the Ripper, who vanishes into the future. Suddenly, the man who dreamed of utopia is chasing one of history's most notorious killers through 1970s San Francisco. Directed by Nicholas Meyer, the film stars Malcolm McDowell as Wells and David Warner as a chillingly calm Jack the Ripper. The culture clash is as much the point as the chase. Wells, with his Victorian manners and optimism, is horrified by a world of fast food, feminism, free love, and violence splashed across TV screens. Meanwhile, the Ripper looks around at the modern city and smugly declares, "This is my natural habitat." Chilling doesn't even begin to cover it. But Time After Time isn't just clever, it's emotionally rich. Mary Steenburgen plays Amy Robbins, a modern woman who falls for Wells, grounding the film with warmth and romance. The chemistry between McDowell and Steenburgen was so strong, they married in real life afterward. The film wowed critics and audiences, pulling in box office success and proving that time travel could fuel more than just spectacle. It could explore morality, culture, and even love. It's a thriller, a love story, and a sly commentary on whether humanity has really advanced at all. Even today, it feels fresh, like a playful, terrifying game of cat and mouse across time itself. Slaughterhouse-Five, 1972. Few films about time travel have ever been as daring or as devastating as Slaughterhouse-Five. Based on Kurt Vonnegut's landmark novel, it tells the story of Billy Pilgrim, a man who becomes unstuck in time. That phrase alone captures the brilliance of both the book and the film. Billy experiences his life in fragments, jumping without warning from his childhood to his old age. From the horrors of World War II to a strange alien zoo on the planet Tralfamadore. Directed by George Roy Hill, the film balances surreal humor with gut-punch tragedy. The centerpiece is Billy's experience as a prisoner of war in Dresden, where he survives the infamous firebombing that incinerated the city. But instead of being just another war movie, Slaughterhouse-Five turns trauma into a fractured looping timeline. War, peace, love, death, they all blur together, as if time itself refuses to make sense anymore. Michael Sachs, in his only major role, captures Billy's wide-eyed confusion perfectly. One moment he's watching planes rain destruction, the next he's lying in a suburban bed decades later, or staring at alien beings who see all of time at once. The film doesn't hand you easy answers. It forces you to live inside Billy's disjointed reality. Though Vonnegut was famously hard to please, he actually praised the film as a strong adaptation, calling it a flawless translation. That's no small compliment. Today, Slaughterhouse-Five stands as one of the most haunting time travel films ever made, not because of paradoxes or machines, but because it shows how memory itself can be the cruelest form of time travel. The Angry Red Planet 1960. By 1960, audiences were hungry for big, bold sci-fi, and The Angry Red Planet promised exactly that. Marketed with the gimmick of cinemagic, a process that tinted whole scenes in eerie red hues, This American theatrical release wasn't just about going to Mars. It was about plunging viewers into a surreal nightmare where time and perception warped along with the landscape. The story follows four astronauts on the first crewed mission to Mars. At first, everything seems like a classic adventure: rockets, spacesuits, radio chatter. But the second they set foot on the Martian surface, reality twists. The planet is bathed in a red glow, filled with bizarre, oversized creatures, like the infamous bat-rat-spider-crab hybrid that defy logic. Even time itself feels distorted, as if the crew isn't just exploring Mars, but being swallowed into a hostile dimension where cause and effect no longer work the same way. What really blew minds wasn't the budget. It was tiny, but the mood. Director Ib Melchior leaned on atmosphere instead of polish. The Cinemagic filter gave everything an alien quality, turning cheap sets into something otherworldly. For 1960 audiences, it felt experimental, like watching a fever dream unfold in real time. The film's finale drives home its unnerving edge. When the crew barely escapes, they discover their time on Mars left gaps, distortions, and questions that can't be answered. Did they actually experience it, or did time itself play tricks on them? Critics mocked the effects, but drive-in audiences loved the strangeness. Today, the Angry Red Planet lives on as cult sci-fi, scrappy, weird, and unforgettable. It wasn't about sleek rockets, it was about showing that once you mess with time and space, the universe might not let you come back the same. Journey to the Far Side of the Sun, 1969. What if NASA discovered another Earth hiding in plain sight? That's the hook behind Journey to the Far Side of the Sun, released internationally as Doppelganger, a trippy 1969 sci-fi thriller from Jerry and Sylvia Anderson, the creators of Thunderbirds. The movie begins with scientists detecting a mysterious planet orbiting directly opposite Earth on the other side of the Sun, forever hidden from view. A joint U.S.-European mission is launched to investigate, but what the astronauts find is far stranger than anyone imagined. When they crash land, everything looks normal: cities, cars, people. But slowly, eerie differences creep in. Numbers are reversed, writing is backwards, and even time itself seems inverted. The astronauts realize too late that they're on a mirror Earth, a parallel version of our world where reality runs the other way. It's a premise that pushes beyond space exploration into full-blown metaphysical horror. Visually, the film delivers that sleek 1960s futurism: gleaming rockets, stylish control rooms, and sharp uniforms. But beneath the production design lurks a deeply unsettling idea. What if crossing space also means crossing into a world where everything is out of sync, including time? Critics at the time were mixed, calling it confusing, but modern fans embrace its boldness. Journey to the Far Side of the Sun didn't become a mainstream hit, but it left a long shadow. Its mirrored Earth concept influenced later films and TV series, from Star Trek's alternate universes to modern multiverse thrillers. For viewers, it was less about rocket launches and more about the existential gut punch of discovering that you don't just travel through space, you travel through the very fabric of reality. The Time Slip, aka The Atomic Man, 1965. Imagine knowing the future, not in broad strokes, but exactly 7 seconds ahead of everyone else. That's the eerie premise of The Time Slip, known in the U.S. as The Atomic Man. Re-released to American theaters in 1965, this film mixed pulpy sci-fi with Cold War spy drama, and it still stands as one of the weirdest time warp thrillers of its era. The story begins when a man is pulled from the Thames River after a mysterious radiation accident. Doctors quickly realize he's not quite normal. His brain is functioning seconds ahead of the present. He answers questions before they're asked. He reacts to events before they happen. It's not just creepy, it's destabilizing. Authorities discover he may hold the key to unraveling a web of espionage, sabotage, and nuclear secrets. What makes The Time Slip fascinating isn't just the sci-fi hook, but how it merges with a tense spy story. Instead of ray guns and spaceships, we get dark laboratories, ticking bombs, and shady agents lurking in the background. The 7 seconds ahead concept is simple but chilling. Imagine the unease of sitting across from someone who always knows what you're about to say or do. Critics of the time dismissed it as B-movie fodder, but it's exactly that pulp energy that gives it charm today. The movie treats its bizarre premise seriously, grounding it in a noir-like atmosphere that feels more paranoid thriller than space opera. For audiences in the nuclear age, when seconds really did matter, it carried an extra punch. Today, the time slip survives as one of those overlooked gems. Low budget, yes, but brimming with the kind of creative what-if that only 60s sci-fi dared to tackle. It reminds us that sometimes time travel isn't about centuries, it's about seconds. And those seconds can mean everything. 12:01 p.m. 1973. Decades before Groundhog Day or Edge of Tomorrow made time loops mainstream, there was 12:01 p.m. This short film, released in 1973 on the festival circuit and later in U.S. theaters as part of sci-fi showcases, delivered a gut-punch idea. What if you were trapped reliving the same hour over and over again, with no escape? The plot is brutally simple. A man leaves work for lunch at exactly 12:01 p.m., only to realize he's doomed to repeat the same events again and again. Conversations reset. People say the same things. No matter what he does, run, scream, fight, the hour resets, and he's back at the starting line. Unlike the comedic takes that would follow in later decades, 12:01 p.m. plays it straight. It's not funny, it's horrifying. The claustrophobic feel of the film is what makes it so powerful. The camera lingers on the man's growing despair, his frantic attempts to break free, and his slow realization that he might never escape. The repetition becomes suffocating, pulling the audience into the same trap he's in. At just under 30 minutes, it doesn't need more time. It says everything with chilling efficiency. The film was so influential that decades later, it sparked legal controversy when its creators accused Groundhog Day of borrowing too heavily from its concept. Whether or not that's true, there's no denying 12:01 p.m. introduced the time loop to cinema in a way that shocked audiences of the early 70s. Watching it today feels just as unsettling. It's proof that sometimes the scariest form of time travel isn't rocketing into the far future. It's being stuck in the same miserable moment forever. The Time Travelers of 1976. By the mid-70s, sci-fi had firmly moved into drive-ins and grindhouse circuits, and The Time Travelers of 1976 was one of its wildest rides. Not to be confused with the 1964 film of the same name, this later release leaned into pulp excess, hurling its characters across eras with no safety net and no rules. The story follows a group of scientists who create a new kind of temporal gateway. Their plan is to study history, but almost immediately the machine spirals out of control. Instead of making clean landings in the past or future, the group is ripped through time like rag dolls, one moment in the age of dinosaurs, the next in a desolate, war-torn future. Each stop offers new dangers, from primitive beasts to futuristic warlords. What set this movie apart was its sheer unpredictability. It didn't aim for polish, it aimed for thrills. The filmmakers leaned on stock footage, recycled sets, and cheap effects, but they stitched it all together with a breathless pace that kept audiences hooked. Drive-in crowds didn't come for subtlety, they came for spectacle. And this movie delivered in spades. Critics panned it at the time, but fans of 70s sci-fi embraced its chaotic energy. It's a snapshot of an era when filmmakers weren't afraid to throw everything at the screen. Historical reenactments, laser battles, rubber dinosaurs, and call it a time travel epic. Today, The Time Travelers of 1976 holds a strange charm. It's messy, overstuffed, and gloriously ambitious. But isn't that exactly what makes time travel cinema fun? It dares to ask not, what if we could control time, but what if time itself just yanked us around like puppets? The Yesterday Machine, 1963. Sometimes the strangest treasures came from the independent corners of American cinema. The Yesterday Machine, released in 1963, is one of those oddball relics. Shot in Texas on a shoestring budget, it tells the story of two college students who stumble upon a Nazi scientist hiding out in America with a fully functioning time machine. His plan? To travel back and rewrite the outcome of World War II. Yes, the premise is as wild as it sounds. The movie swings between pulp thriller and outright absurdity, but the heart of it is a genuine fear that the past could be manipulated for evil. The students caught in the middle find themselves flung across time in a desperate effort to stop the scheme. The film's low budget is obvious, sets are minimal, effects are clunky, but the sheer audacity of the story makes up for it. Nazis meddling with time wasn't a common trope yet, and The Yesterday Machine laid groundwork for dozens of later films that would explore similar what if history changed ideas. Drive-in audiences embraced its mix of sci-fi and camp. Critics rolled their eyes, but cult fans kept it alive, hunting down prints and eventually preserving it as one of those so bad it's good gems. Today, it's available online for curious viewers who want a taste of how far indie filmmakers were willing to stretch their imagination. It's messy, ambitious, and unforgettable. A time travel curio that proves you don't need millions of dollars to tell a story that sticks in your brain. The Girl Who Leapt Through Time, 1972. Most time travel movies of the 60s and 70s threw you into apocalypses, dystopias, or cosmic disasters. But The Girl Who Leapt Through Time, released in 1972, took a quieter, more haunting approach. Based on Yasutaka Tsutsui's novel, it's the story of a teenage girl who discovers, almost by accident, that she can leap backward through time. No gleaming machines, no flashing portals, just a sudden, disorienting ability to relive moments she thought were gone. At first, it feels like a gift. Who wouldn't want to fix mistakes, dodge embarrassment, or rewrite small regrets? But as the story unfolds, the tone darkens. Each leap brings consequences she can't anticipate. Relationships fracture, trust erodes, and the weight of knowing what's coming, while everyone else lives in blissful ignorance, slowly becomes unbearable. It's not about changing the fate of humanity. It's about the crushing loneliness of carrying knowledge you can't share. What makes this film remarkable is its intimacy. Shot with a dreamy, almost fragile style, it feels less like pulp sci-fi and more like a memory you can't escape. The simplicity of the special effects, subtle camera tricks, careful editing, only heightens the sense of dislocation. Instead of dazzling with spectacle, it unsettles you by asking, what would you really do if you could redo a moment? And could you live with the cost? Though it wasn't a blockbuster, The Girl Who Leapt Through Time left a deep mark, particularly in Japan, where it became a cult classic. Its influence grew over time, inspiring later adaptations, including the acclaimed anime film decades later. But the 1972 original still holds its own because it dared to strip time travel down to its rawest form, the emotional scars of living life out of order. It proves you don't need cosmic battles to blow minds. Sometimes a single leap is enough. Time travel movies of the 60s and 70s weren't polished. They were bold, messy, and unforgettable. From dystopian futures to fragile personal leaps, these films proved imagination beats budget. Which one twisted your brain the most? Tell us in the comments, subscribe for more, and remember, your next great discovery might already be waiting in another timeline.